Hi everyone, welcome back. You're still with us here on the CE Morning Show. As my colleague Marissa mentioned, we're up for our first talk show, and there's two things she loves. If it's not books, then it's psychology. And today we're going to dive deeper into the world of psychology. And I don't know about all of you at home, but I certainly have once in a while felt a strong sense of control over what happens to me. And if that happens to you as well, you may have what is called an internal locus of control.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with locusts.
Yeah, I was thinking it was locus of control because in the beginning when I read that, I was like, oh, are we going to have an environmental talk? No. This is actually a terminology or a concept in psychology. And this is honestly, I've read so many psychology books because I love psychology. I love human behavior. But this is the first time ever
This is new for you.
I've heard locus of control.
Okay.
So, thankfully, today we have clinical psychologist Mutiara Maharini to explain to us what is exactly locus of control. How many kinds of locus of control do we have in our lives, and how does it impact positively or probably negatively on our lives? So, good morning, Mahari.
Good morning. So nice to be here.
Good to have you back, as always.
Yeah.
Yes. So, what is exactly, Mahari, locus of control? What is it?
Okay. So a locus of control, even though it sounds like something new, it's actually a term that was coined in the 1960s.
Right.
But most probably, if you don't come from a psychology major, you've never heard of it because it's not that popular.
Yes.
But what it is actually a locus of control is an orientation, a way of thinking, a belief about basically if you think the outcome of your behavior is actually contingent to what you do, or if it is about external events or external things outside of your control.
Right.
So it's basically whether you believe that most of the things that happen in your life is because of what you do, or because of random chances, or about behaviors of other people, or things that are just way out of your control.
So that makes the difference between internal. Internal is when we think that what happens in our lives is because of our control.
Like, are we talking everything here? Like,
yeah.
how far does this go?
Yeah. So the thing is, it's not a dichotomy, it's a spectrum.
Okay.
And someone who is healthy should have both. So you should be able to know that in your life, you do have control over certain aspects.
Yes.
Correct.
But if you go to an extreme where you think that you can control everything,
whoa,
that's very unhealthy as well.
Could you give us an example of something that somebody is disillusioned by thinking that they're in control of? That somebody might think that they're in control, but they're actually not.
Well, it's actually basically like when, I'm just going to take like a daily example, not one that's very extreme, but for some people who are so like very, very ambitious, let's say you're like a gym freak, right? And then you think that you're doing every single thing right. You're like eating healthy, you're drinking your protein shakes, you know, maybe you're getting your vitamins, but and then suddenly like you get a cold. And then you're just so frustrated over that. Because you're thinking,
how could this happen? It's
how
impossible.
How does this happen? Like, I'm supposed to be the healthiest person on earth. And something as simple as a cold can create a feeling of failure. And then you can be thinking like, what have I done? And then you kind of like look over your days. Where did I get this virus? You know, it becomes something
it's
so
like an
excruciating.
obsessive behavior.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you punish yourself as well.
And then you punish yourself and you become like very harsh on yourself as well, right?
Right.
So that's
that's not good.
That's not good. And it's actually like, if we reflect on ourselves, I'm sure there are times where we feel that, you know, maybe there's actually not only myself that was involved in the situation, you know, maybe it's the weather, right? I mean, there are a lot of things that you need to take into context to kind of take a conclusion.
That's a really good example.
I can see how the perfectionist can fall into this category so much, right? It's like, I gotta be perfect. When I'm not perfect, I punish myself. Bam, 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 bam.
Right.
Which is not good, by the way, guys. What about the opposite? The external locus of
control.
Yes. Give us an example.
So the opposite of that is actually living a life where you feel like you don't have any control. So can you imagine waking up and thinking, you know, I have no control whatsoever on what's going to happen today.
So what does that do to someone? Someone's quality of life.
Can you imagine how it feels you feeling demotivated, first of all? Because why would you bother? It's like, why would you bother waking up, taking a bath, going to work, trying to invest in your relationships if you think that, you know, whatever I do, no matter how much effort I put into my life, the same results will happen, or maybe even worse.
Yes.
And this kind of thinking usually leads to depression.
Correct.
So if you have an extreme internal locus of control where you think you can control everything, it usually leads to anxiety. Because you're kind of thinking, what else can I do? I mean, I want to predict the future. I want to be able to have everything intact, right?
Cannot.
No. Especially, it can lead to things like OCD, where you have obsessive and compulsive behaviors in order of getting like the perfect results, which are not there. And then the second thing is when you think that, no matter what I do, it's going to be the same, you kind of develop a hopelessness, helplessness, and it can leave you feeling quite depressed as well.
Are you starting to, are you placing yourself somewhere on the spectrum?
I think spectrum.
Okay,
definitely spectrum.
Where do you place yourself?
Well, I used to be a complete perfectionist,
Okay.
and I could feel how it was sort of like, it was soul destroying at the same time. The self-punishing was there. It was not healthy for me. I mean, I still want to do my best, but not to the crazy extent,
Yeah.
But also at the same time, there were days, as mentioned by Mahari earlier, when I felt like I don't feel like doing anything. Whatever I do, it doesn't matter anyway. So I think.
So you could actually sway.
Yeah. I think probably, hopefully, that's the healthy way, right? What about you?
Well, I'm leaning more towards the first. I'm more of an internal, because I'm at that point where I sometimes feel anxiety over things. I tell myself like, I know I don't have any control over this. For example, I'm a little bit late because of bad weather and traffic. I said, I really could have left earlier, couldn't I? But who would have
So you
foresaw
punish
that?
yourself. It's like, oh, Paul.
I know I should have left earlier, but then it's like, how would I know that was going to happen? So I'm always in that. So how do we find that balance? I mean, it seems like a balancing act, doesn't it?
Yeah. It is quite tricky, and actually the healthy thing is to have a bit of internal and also a bit of external, which is actually, the research says, of course, mostly we should have internal locus of control.
Okay.
And as we age, from when you were a baby, of course, when you were a baby, you have an external locus of control.
Can't do anything, mommy, feed me.
You're completely dependent on everybody else. But as we grow, we learn that, oh, you know what? I do have some control over my environment. So the healthy thing is to know, to really be able to identify in different contexts which part of this I am able to control and which part you aren't. Just like your example, being late. Someone who always, leaves to work at 6 a.m. on some days might be late, right?
Yes.
I mean,
because of traffic in Jakarta.
The car might break down.
Correct.
And then, he might suddenly get a stomach ache or something. There's always things like that. But once you know and you focus on the process, oh, you know what? I left at 6 a.m. Usually that is okay. Google Maps said it's okay. But today I'm a little bit late. So I'll accept that and I'll take note, so that next time it's either I can leave earlier or just communicate better to my boss so that he understands why I'm late.
That's the brilliant thing about being human. We have the brain to actually learn from our mistakes.
That's true.
And it's okay to make mistakes. I'm always interested in the root cause, Mahari.
Yes.
So what is causing someone to have more
extreme, right?
Extreme internal or extreme external locus of control?
So the thing about psychology and personality traits, most of the parts people will always say, it's genetic. But actually, there isn't really a lot of research about this. I mean, most of the traits you'll say that they have some genetic factors, but it's not like pinpoint. But what you can say is that it's definitely affected by your upbringing. So if you had parents who were quite permissive and just let you do whatever you want, and then there would be no consequences,
no boundaries,
and then it's like you would still be spoiled, you'd get everything. Usually you'd have an external locus of control because you don't know that what you do has consequences. And then you also think that, no matter what I do, I'm still going to be spoiled, right? So it's like, why bother?
Oh, wow. I never thought of it that
It's
way.
like whether today I eat really good food or my parents buy me a really nice gift, it's just random. It's not because I did something.
Okay.
Right.
But if you have really authoritarian parents who are very disciplined, if you do this, then you get that. If you do this, then you get that. Then you will have an internal locus of control. Hopefully it's a good one, but if it's to an extreme, then you might be quite transactional, right? If I do this, then this will happen. And then when you're an adult, you do something, and then how come you don't get the same result?
Right, okay.
And that will like make you feel super anxious.
Wow, so how should we parent then?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of what kind of parenting style we have. Definitely not the first, but there's a limit, isn't there? I mean, you want to raise your kids with that right balance that we were talking about.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing about Gen Z and Gen Alpha after them is that they have a really, really high intolerance of uncertainty. And this is something that as parents we have to notice, because the world is changing in such a fast way. I mean, even for Gen Z and Gen Alpha, it's like there was a pandemic, and then all this economic stuff, and then this unstable politics. So it's changing all the time, leaving them very anxious. And as parents, we can't control the world and say, you know, stop changing. Like, slow down. My child isn't ready yet. You can't say that. But what you can do is help them build skills on how to tolerate uncertainty.
What are the skills that we can build?
The first thing is actually starting from ourselves, of course. We need to model them that, you know, it's really nice to have an internal locus of control, to believe that we can make a change, that the outcome of our behaviors are, you know, based on what we do. But there are really certain times that we don't have control. And the process of, you know, looking at that circle of control, seeing which part you can control and which part you can't, that's actually so tricky. Everybody's always saying, like, focus on what you can control. But it's a thin line. We don't know what that is. It's a thin line. So we have to kind of show them that it's a learning process. Sometimes you're going to be right, sometimes you're going to be wrong, but that's okay. And just try to continue to learn and realize that sometimes it's okay that things happen outside of your control. And it's actually an exercise for your flexibility, in which towards the future, that's actually something that they need so much. Flexibility, adaptability, rather than, you know, being super tight and super like not being able to adapt with what's happening.
You know what's great for that, by the way, if I can add, I have a 9-year-old, by the way, and sports is great for that. Because if you put someone in competitive sports, that's basically my first learning lesson as to what I had and did not have control of. I can control how much I practiced and how I expected. I visualized the outcome, just like Kobe Bryant. But then things didn't turn out that way, and that part was out of my control. But I did everything I could to control the outcome, although a lot of it was still out of my control.
And
there were
also
many other factors.
the winning and losing, right? So it helps children to learn that it's okay to lose. It doesn't mean that you're a failure. Just means that, okay, you know, it's like this can be a stepping stone for you to be better. And it's okay. Oh, I love that.
Sports is a great teaching lesson. Really we don't think of it that way sometimes as a psychological tool. They just think of it more as a physical, but I always see it that way.
I think so too. And I think also when we talk about locus of control, I can't help but think of stoicism as well, right? Because it talks about, it's like, okay, what is within your control, what is outside your control. I remember feeling the anxiety during the pandemic, because at that time, I think it was back in 2021 when it was really, really bad. I would hear the sirens of ambulance every day, constantly, and it created a lot of anxiety because I felt bad. I felt bad that I can't do anything much. So what can I do then? So at that time, I was having this talk with someone who said, you know, it's like just think of the simple ways that you can do right now. For example, like right now, we hear the war in Gaza. Right? There's a lot of people, victims, innocent people dying there. What can we do?
Feel helpless.
Exactly. Feel helpless because, like, I want to go there, but I don't have access to go there. But what can you do? There are some donations that you can do, right, to help. So in a way, do think about, as Mahari said earlier, do think about, like, okay, in this current condition, what is the simple step that we can still do in a way to, you know, to make things better? Okay.
So just to recognize that we are a little bit too extreme on one side or another, what are some of the signs that we need to look out for?
Well, I think definitely for someone that you think that, you know, I might have an extreme internal locus of control.
Yes.
You can see it's usually people who have signs of perfectionism.
Okay.
They might be finding it hard to delegate.
Oh my goodness, Mahari, you're reading me.
Yeah, because
used to, at least.
you think that, you know, if I delegate to someone else, then the results will be outside of my control.
So it's hard for example, Marissa, it would be hard for her to delegate to somebody else.
Yes.
Well, did you have that problem?
Yeah.
I did not.
Oh my gosh, I was so bad. Anyway,
Wow.
continue.
Okay, go on.
And also, if you're on the other side of it,
Yes.
so you're on the extreme external locus of control, you'll find yourself in a lot of situations where you feel like you're the victim.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I can see that.
So if you're thinking, you know, maybe you're lying on your bed while watching this and you're thinking, you know, life has been so bad to me.
Yeah.
Everybody is always so mean to me. And then you just keep on thinking that you're the victim of every single situation. Then maybe it's time to get a little checkup to ask, you know, is it really my environment, or is there a certain way of thinking that I can change? This is not gaslighting yourself,
Sure.
but it's just, you know, having a reality check, you know?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, have that
self-reflection.
dialogue. Exactly. Often have that dialogue with yourself. Hey, Mahari, in Indonesia we have this thing. I don't know if this is an Asian thing or this is an Indonesian thing. It's called terima nasib. So just like accept your fate. Sometimes it can be a double-edged sword when I hear terima nasib.
Is that an example of...
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's kind of an external locus of
a little bit of
control
external,
there, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But in sometimes that's actually how we survive, because if you have high anxiety, you realize that there really isn't that much things that we can control. A lot of the things we can't control. So how do we cope with that? We usually like that, terima nasib, or we use spirituality.
Religion, I was going to say spirituality.
We believe that there's a higher power that is controlling, and it is, you know, working for the best of us.
Yes.
And that is actually very helpful, especially if you're really anxious, right? But maybe like in the Islamic teachings, there is like tawakal, which is basically, you know, surrendering. But there's also ikhtiar. You have to kind of work for it first. You put in effort first, and then you tawakal. So that's something that I think we can practice every day, so that we realize, okay, put in effort, but to a certain extent, it's done. I leave it and I focus on the process, not the results.
I love that, because we're just beginning the month of Ramadan. Ikhtiar and tawakal. Thank you for that. That was beautiful.
That in as well. By the way, Mahari and her husband Jerry, I know them both.
Yes.
I wish they were my parents. They know exactly how to raise me right.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for joining us. I love having you on the program, especially talking about this.
Yeah.
I think that's very unique and definitely new to me. Learned a lot in this one.
New to me as well. Learned a lot. Thank you so much, Mahari.
Thank you so much, everyone. Happy fasting.
Yes.
Thank
Happy,
you. Happy
Ramadan.
fasting.
We're going to take another short break here on the program. But in case you did join us late, don't worry. We're going to catch you up on some of the latest world headlines when we return here on the C Morning Show. Stay with us.